Well, I am so thrilled to have an opportunity to have a conversation with you.
And I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So, can you just kind of share about your role or involvement in the community in general in 1984-85 timeframe?
Yes, I can. During that time, I had just moved back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I was looking for organizations to be a part of, and I joined quite a few. I'm known as a community organizing type person, and I've always enjoyed, even growing up, being in the community, helping people.
And what drove you to do that? Like, what was the motivation?
My mother and father, and they were always taking in kids and people. I remember one time a home burned down and the mother was killed, and the next thing I knew, in the middle of the night, I had 6 other siblings.
Wow.
That's what we called them. My parents took them in so that they could have a place to live. And then on another occasion, I remember all of our Christmas presents disappearing just before Christmas because a family had lost everything. And the 6 of us had a lot of everything because our parents did pretty well. And next thing I know, all of our gifts were gone.
Wow.
And we were given $5 each.
Oh, wow.
And
But
for
a blessing to
Christmas.
somebody else.
And
though.
that taught us,
Yeah.
yes, that taught us, yes, to give. It's better to give than to receive.
I love that. So let's talk professionally. So when you came back to the Dallas area in the 80s, what did professional life for you look like at the time?
At the time I was flying for Delta Airlines. I flew for 30 years before I retired, traveling the world, introducing my children and my spouse to the world. And I came back here wanting to be more involved in the community, and I started by, once again, through the church and through some of the smaller organizations, and then eventually became a member of the Links Incorporated and Jack and Jill.
Yeah, which I'm also a member.
Yes, and some of the other smaller organizations. And they were quite successful.
Yeah.
We were quite successful in those groups. And then, fortunately, my husband and I were on vacation in Cancun.
Yes.
And on the flight back, somehow or another, Helen Hunt and I ended up sitting together, and her daughter and my husband ended up sitting together. And we decided to just leave the arrangement like that. Helen
And what, tell me about that flight and what you and Helen talked about.
Helen and I talked the entire flight back to Dallas, and we wanted to know a little bit about each other's family. And she asked me first, and I told her that I was involved in some organizations here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I told her about my life being a widow and my daughter being born 3 weeks after my husband's death, and how I had to adjust because this was in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And in the 60s, if you're a single woman, or if you're a woman, period, your credit cards had to be in your husband's names. So whatever credit cards I had, they were revoked. I wanted to buy a car. I had plenty of funds to buy the car, but I couldn't. My dad had to sign for me. Yeah. And there were a number of little things, and they always bothered me. And I was telling Helen about this, and she looked over at me and said, well, I want to invite you to a meeting of some lady friends of mine when we get back to Dallas. And I said, okay. So we get off the flight and we're in immigrations. I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. Did you expect to actually get that call?
And I didn't expect to get the card because she caught up with me in immigration. She goes, and here's my number, here's my card. What are yours? I had a little social card, so I gave it to her. And I got a call about 2 weeks later. And it was to come to a little gathering at Harriet Earhart's home on Swiss Avenue. And I'm like, I kind of know that area. Okay,
right.
I'll go.
And did you recognize the name Harriet Earhart at the time?
I did.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, names like Jerry Beer, Jenny Whitehill, Vivian Castleberry, some of those names I had heard because I was starting to get involved in the community.
Yeah.
And to be sitting in the room with all of these beautiful ladies and so well known and so well respected. And I understand that they were the start of the women's movement here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which I was thrilled to be a part
Well,
of.
so were you, quite honestly, of
well,
course.
thank
You were
you.
appropriately at that table with them, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I was. And it was just interesting listening to them talk. And then when they started talking about the financial side of what was happening to women, my memory went right back to Helen and what we discussed on the airplane. And they were talking about how women of means, when their spouses died or they were divorced, how their funds somehow didn't quite match up to what it should be.
Yeah.
That a lot of the lawyers were taking monies, different other groups were taking monies.
And you had how many kids to provide for after your husband passed?
This
Or
two.
two,
I
and
had
then you
the
had
two.
one shortly after he passed, right?
Well, that's the one. She was a part of the two.
Okay.
Yes. But they were still my babies. I had to support them. And I had to learn. And when I met my husband, my present husband, I think I had been flying for Delta for about 5-6 years. And he graciously took my babies as his own. And I took his son as my own. And we moved to San Francisco. And even there, I was trying to get involved in the community.
So let's talk about how you actually did financially provide for your family. You know, you weren't working. I know you worked for Delta for a while as a flight attendant, but how did that even come about?
Well, luckily, I was blessed that my husband left some funds for us, and I moved in with my parents because I was expecting a baby. But after the baby was born, my parents would say, go visit relatives, go visit relatives. Well, I had this cousin in New York that I enjoyed visiting. I would go up and visit with them. And all of a sudden I started to notice that I had the same crew. And then I realized their pattern of flying was bid. And that's why I had them. And this captain said one night, we see you a lot on the flight. And I told him my story. And he says, why don't you come go to dinner with the crew? And I said, okay. And the next thing I know, he has mailed an application to me to come fly. Well, at that time, the airlines, if you were a flight attendant, you didn't have children. This is when everything was starting to change.
In every sense of the word.
Thank you. And so I became one of the first to have children with the airlines. And 30 years later, here I am.
Wow, that's an amazing story.
So it did provide a wonderful income for me. Mm-hmm. It did. And even once I married again, I was one of those because I had learned so much from the women in the foundation and the lessons that were taught to us. I needed to make sure that if it happened again, I was prepared.
Yeah, you learned from that history.
I learned from that.
Yeah.
And I'm prepared. If something should happen to my spouse now, I can live and take care of my
I
autistic
identify
son.
with that so much. I know we share that in being a widow and having children to continue to raise.
You got to raise them. You must raise them.
Tell me about some of the things that you all talked about at those first meetings at what was then the Dallas Women's Foundations, what the conversation was like around the table.
I'll be honest with you, the first meeting, it just kind of went over my head because I'm looking at all these women and some of these women of wealth, talking, and I'm sitting there going, okay, your husband might could write a $50,000 check. My husband's going to write you a $500 one.
Right.
Impactful
Jokingly. For you, of course.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But, he was a corporate, gentleman, and he was able to get corporations to write some sizable checks to the foundation in the early days. And that meant a lot to me. But I learned so much. The camaraderie of the ladies, that was interesting because we stayed together. We were always together. I remember having an illness, and I think I shared this with you guys. I literally left this earth, and I was brought back. Helen Hunt flew down, and all of these women prayed for me.
And where were you living at the time?
In Plano at the time. We'd come back here, and I was in Plano. And just the camaraderie and the love and respect from this group of women. And, of course, my other friends, I was surrounded by a lot of love. Wow. That helped a lot. And once again, that told me that not only that I need to be prepared personally, if I left here, I need to leave my kids in good shape and my spouse.
Yeah.
And I think he was going to have to take care of the kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you all demonstrated, so you talk about that support that you got from the group of the founders from the Dallas Women's
Yes.
Foundation, but you also, I mean, your kids were watching, right? You were
Yes.
demonstrating that
Yes.
for your daughter and your
Exactly.
family on what that
Exactly.
collective strength.
Exactly. And to this day, my daughter and I still talk about ways of making sure that if her spouse should, pass. I mean, he had COVID twice and during the heaviest times of COVID. And we were quite scared. But, she's well aware of what she must do. And of course, she's got her mama.
Yes.
And I'm going to make sure that she understands that she needs to always be prepared. Yes.
So I can't help but think about when you talked about the economic security that you needed as a solo parent. I don't call it single parent because when you don't
Solo,
have a
yes.
spouse, you are by yourself.
Yes.
But the economic security you needed, the access to the workforce that you needed,
Yes.
the access to housing that you needed to keep your family, and those things, as you know, continue to be pillars for the Texas
Yes.
Women's Foundation.
Yes.
So how do you think about that when you think about those first meetings that you had around somebody's coffee table to today in 2025?
Wow. Well, back then, I had started to learn because I had lost my husband. I had gone through all those things in the 60s. And now I'm sitting here talking with women, and they're bringing in experts to talk to us about how to get started and what to do. And it was doing these talks that I said, oh, there's a whole demographic of women that are not here. That we need to bring in to understand what's happening. And one of the things I struck out to do was to make sure we had some inclusivity. And I talked to young women and girls, young women, and some girls, because I want girls to understand what's facing
really
them.
important.
I still do that.
Yeah.
I still do that. And so my role at that time was bringing these young women in, and some not so young, into the organization, so that it became a very diverse group of women that were in here.
Yeah.
And most of them are still here.
Wow, that's so wonderful.
Most of them are still involved.
Yeah, so and let's talk a little bit more about that, because you jokingly talked about the wealth around the table.
Yes.
But there were women of all different economic backgrounds.
All
and
socioeconomic backgrounds.
And races.
Yes.
And political opinions and all the like, right? And so where do you think, where was Frances's mark in that conversation around those
My
tables?
mark was whatever you have, you need to learn how to use it. You need to learn how to spread it with your family. If you made $500 a month, you've got to learn how to take that and make a budget and work with it. Yeah. If you made $5,000 a month, you still have to, because no matter what level you're on, you still got bills, you've got to feed, you've got all of this. So my role was to ensure that especially young women, be prepared. Mm-hmm. Get yourselves prepared. And to this day, when I speak to young women about the organization, I want them to become advocates. Yeah. They need to learn now, become advocates, because we're talking about empowerment now. Absolutely. Empowerment for stability and success. Yeah. And when you've got that, you're going to make it. Yeah.
And you talked about, you're still sharing that with young women in the classroom, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I sure am. A lot of my friends have retired. I retired from the airlines, but I still go into the schools. And at my school right now, I'm known as the long-term substitute teacher. And I'm presently doing that. I took the day off so we could do this.
We're grateful for that.
But the students wanted to know, why are you taking the day off? They don't want me to leave. As a matter of fact, they call me Mama Bear on campus. And so they were like, well, Mama Bear, where are you going? And I told them, why? And so I took 15 minutes out of each class on the A day and a B day to talk to them. So the boys were like, well, why can't we go? And I said, well, if you'd been around a few years back, I could have worked with you on that. because I think I mentioned to you, I started an organization in Plano based on the Women's Foundation.
Okay, tell me about that and
Yes,
how you got started and what was
it was interesting. We did they had a career day for the young ladies at the school. And I came dressed in my uniform and had my little wings, and I was giving wings out, and the girls really loved it. And then 4 or 5 of the girls came up and they said, we wish we had an organization where we could just come and do what you're doing and talk about things. And I said, we probably can, but we'd have to get permission from the school. So we did. We got permission from the board. We started the organization. It was called Club Generation Success, and the boys cried foul. And so we had to bring them in. But my reason
inclusivity, right?
Inclusivity,
Yeah.
because what I saw back then was that a lot of the decisions our young girls were making were based on things that were happening to them by young men. And I wanted to make sure that our young men were going to grow up to learn and respect our young women and to work with them.
Right.
So the organization, we worked with over about 3,000 students over a 10-year period.
Yeah.
We monitor them through 9th through 12th and then on through college. And I'm still in touch with a lot of them. We made sure that they got scholarships if they needed them, and we made sure that they learned how to dress, they learned how to budget. The young
all
men,
the important things.
all the important things.
So what was the Women's Foundation's involvement with the creation of, is it Club Generation Success?
It was Club Generation
Yeah.
Success. Well, when I saw what was happening, with the young women in the group, they were talking. Mm-hmm. And it was at that point, I said, those young men cried foul. There's a reason. I need to bring them in.
Right.
And so we did. We brought them in, and it's amazing. It's amazing, the relationship between these young men and these young women that were in the organization and throughout the school. And Plano made it curriculum related. It was that popular.
And how did you fund it?
Corporations.
Okay.
Yes, yes. People
So
don't know
is that
I do
something
grants.
you already? I was going to ask about the
Yes.
grant,
Yes.
grant writing and the grant asking, the requesting. So you
That would
did
be
that.
me. I had a board of directors, and we all worked with it. And actually, that's how I met the Parkers.
Okay.
Their children were in the
Wow.
organization.
Did you do
Ron
that?
and Paula.
Did you participate in grant writing and involvement before the Women's Foundation, or is that something that you kind of took from that involvement?
I learned through the Women's Foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So what a takeaway.
I did a lot of grant writing for them and other organizations. So, but Club Generation Success, it was a hallmark. It was wonderful. Yes.
So you touched on something really important there, because we are the Women's Foundation. Our focus is truly on women and families, because that's the backbone of our society.
Exactly.
But it is equally important for men to be involved in this work,
Must.
right?
It's a
and you
must.
recognize that.
I
with
recognized
Club
that a long
Generation.
time ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And why do you think that's so important?
Because if you've got a good man supporting a good woman, total success.
It's very holistic, right?
And if you've got a good woman and a young man trying to, she can help him. Success again. It's called family or relationship empowerment.
Yeah. Love it. So I'm jumping around a bit, but so when you first got the call from Helen Hunt, she told you where to come on Swiss Avenue. Did you have any sense of hesitation, or what am I getting myself into before you showed up?
No.
What were your thoughts?
Because of our conversation we'd had on the airplane, and I kept saying, on my way on the drive down there, I hope this is something that's going to help the community. I hope this is something that's going to have an impact. And when I got there and I looked around the room and I saw these ladies, some I'd seen their pictures in the paper and I'd heard their names, and I'm like, oh, wow. I was so impressed.
Wow.
And I look at what they did, the foundation that they laid, that I was able to come and participate with, and even now, when I look at, was it 4 or 5 years ago, we had an endowment of about $79 million.
Yes, now it's
I
over
did that
85.
video, and now we're at close to $90 million.
Yes, that's right.
Oh my God.
You did that.
Oh, okay.
You did that.
Wow.
No, I and so many others
yes,
are
but my
grateful.
thing is looking at young ladies like you, young people like you.
Thank you for calling me young.
Others. Yeah. But you guys followed through. We laid the foundation. You guys followed through with it. Yes, you guys followed
and now
through.
we all are doing this for the next generation
The
of
next
leaders behind us.
generation.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, I am looking to the next generation of young women to step up to the plate and carry on.
And you have given them a plate and the bat and the rules to just knock it out of the park.
All they need is a baseball cap, and they're ready to go.
We can do that.
Yes.
So you also mentioned when we were talking about your support of transitioning from the Dallas Women's Foundation to the Texas Women's Foundation. Let's talk about that.
Yes. For years, with the grant writing and the awarding of grants, I kept telling my friends, I said, this should be statewide or even region-wide, because you have these corporations that they maybe have offices here, but they've got satellite offices in other places like Houston, San Antonio, wherever. And to me, it felt unfair that the resources from those companies were just going for just local women. I felt that we could raise even more funds by making it statewide.
Yeah, you were right. Again, another pioneering moment.
And when I got the news, I had just moved to the Memphis area following my grandchildren for a few years before I came back. And I got the news there. It was a celebration for me because I thought that was one of the best moves that the foundation could have made to be inclusive to the entire state of Texas.
Wonderful.
With that name, yes.
We hoped so. And so from your thought process to a couple of years later, and now here we are in 2025. I love it.
Yes.
So we are obviously going to be having this discussion with a lot of people at an amazing luncheon.
Yes.
And I know you were at some of the very first luncheons, but I want you to think about what was one of your favorite or most memorable speakers at those luncheons?
I can equivocally say Barbara Bush.
Okay.
I was so impressed with her. Well, she and her husband, the former president, actually flew into Dallas from Europe, got off an airplane, and came
that
to
day?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And while they were speaking, I think he had just done a parachute jump.
Okay.
Yes. And Ms. Bush said, "For the life of me, I cannot understand why anyone who is on an airplane that's flying in good working condition would want to jump out of it." And when she said that, I went, "You go, lady." I feel the same way. Because, as a flight attendant at that time, I'm like, there's no way I'm jumping out of a good airplane that's flying along.
Did you get to meet her?
Oh, yes. However, my secret is I've always wanted to go parachuting.
Me too.
And to ride my own motorcycle. But my
motorcycle thing, not so much.
Oh,
but
no, when my husband says, "Oh, I'd have to take out Lords of London on you first."
Yeah, the insurance and that, right.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll jump and do that together.
Yes.
Any other special memories for you just over the years in your involvement with the foundation that stick out?
Just to see the diversity of it, the inclusion, that has just been awesome.
Yeah.
That has been awesome. Even the leadership, the boards. Every time I get the magazine, I open it up, and I look at the new board, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because it represents the community.
I agree.
Yeah, it represents the community.
I think it's so interesting how intentional you all were as the 19 founders to have the diversity of wealth, the diversity of race,
yes,
the diversity of areas in the Dallas-Fort Worth community.
Yes.
And you lived in Plano at the time, which we talked about how that used to be far.
Yes.
Now Plano is not so far. And then when you see that continuing, it, number one, I think reminds you of the commonality of all of our interests.
Exactly.
But also the commonality of the issues and challenges that we're facing and how we can collectively come together to provide some solutions, right?
Unity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unity.
I love it.
Yes.
Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently in terms of your involvement, or you think the foundation would have done differently?
No. No. The leadership has been incredible. The support has been incredible. The finances that the organization has received from the corporations and the donors has been incredible. Like I said, we're almost at $90 million on an endowment. And if I'm not mistaken, I do know for a while we were the world's largest women's foundation. I think we got surpassed one time, and I always say they cheated because their husband wrote the $1 million checks.
Well, we're in Texas, we like to do it bigger too, so we always have
and
to.
So we overcame that, and I think we still are one of the largest women's foundations in the world. And I'm so proud to be a part of it and to have been a part of it.
And let's talk really quickly about the corporate support. So you talked about the fact that, your husband and you both came in individually supported, but then he also participated personally. I think you told me he gave, but then he also got his company to give.
Yes.
So talk about that.
Yes. He was very supportive. I mean, he was, well, when is the next meeting? Make sure you're going. Do I need to go with you if it's at nighttime or whatever? No, I've got it. But when we started setting up the office, they needed a stamp machine, and he bought it. And that was our first gift to the foundation. And then through his position with the various companies he worked with, there were funds that were allotted for the Texas Women's Foundation.
And that corporate support is
extremely
imperative,
important.
right?
Yes. Even though we have a lot of oil wells around here, and single,
Yes.
The corporations, that's very important.
So, Frances, thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge. It's been an extreme honor to get to talk to you about your role in being a pillar in the Texas Women's Foundation. And we're just grateful for you and your leadership and your continued support.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here and to make this announcement of the 90 million that we're close to. Yes. And I look forward to spending more time with you all.
Thank you.